What I was going to ask you is when it comes to appealing to US based versus Canadian based, I imagine they like a lot of the same things. Is that true for Hong Kong based investors? Do they have different things that they're looking for in terms of forward business growth and so on and so forth? Just not a market I'm familiar with working with, really.
You know what, the Hong Kong investors that we work with, and when we listed the company, we made sure at least 25% of our investment came from Hong Kong. And so we had the pleasure of talking to them. And I remember the first meeting I had was that there were like 5 guys. We're at the JW Marriott. Mm-hmm. And I showed them what I was doing, what we want to do as a company. And it was fascinating. First guy says, okay, I'm going to get in at this level. And the next fellow says, oh, well, that's perfect, because when you're ready to exit, I'm going to get into here. And then the third guy says, well, when you're ready to exit, I'm going to get in at this point. And so by the time the 5th guy spoke up, he says, when this TrustBIX company is selling units at 50 million US, mm-hmm. right? Or placements that are minimum 50 million, that's when we'll get in. And so the concept there is they're very long-term thinking, mm-hmm. and they know when they're going to enter and exit a company. So the fantastic part is that they're not just looking at flipping our stock and so forth. They're looking at, is this the right company that will give us the multiple that we want at the end, yeah. as part of our strategy? And so they're really looking for, is this a real company? Does it make sense? And is it within our corporate, our investment values?
Yeah, that's interesting. I had talked to some businessmen based in Hong Kong, and aside from just being what he described as like really way ahead technologically in terms of mm-hmm. like how they handle business and so on and so forth, and looking at technology-based businesses, he had also described it as the overall culture was just kind of ahead of us when it came to the speed of things. And the best way he had described it is they just don't mess around with business. He had just said like he was in Hong Kong. He was across from one of the, I don't know the name of the building, but it's apparently one of the tallest buildings in the world in Hong Kong. He said watching it be built, he could watch it be built day by day. He could literally mm-hmm. look over there and see this building going up. He said they move fast, very analytical, and on point. Would you say that that's accurate?
Oh my gosh, you're totally. I would say when I fly into Hong Kong, the people I want to meet with, they would say, oh, you're probably jet lagged, so why don't we meet at midnight? Yeah. And off they go, or 2 in the morning, because we know you're not sleeping anyways. So why don't we just sit down and get our meetings out of the way? And that's the way they work. They just don't sleep. It's all business, and they move at incredible speeds that in North America we're just not used to. And it's exciting because when you're running a tech company and you really want to push yourself, those people are inspiring. Of course, we got to make sure we do have work-life balance eventually, otherwise everybody gets burnt out. But in those startup, when you're trying to get acceleration, you want to be talking to people like that and having them help you too.
Yeah, that does make sense. So then, yeah. All right. So tell us more about your travels then over there. So like when you go over there and you're doing these meetings, you had said like you would aim for what, 25% investment from Hong Kong. Why those round numbers? Is there like an investment risk portfolio for investors that you bring on?
Actually, I'm not that smart. Really what it came down to be was we were looking at our business and okay, when we're talking about food and traceability, where are the pockets of population that we really want to be able to hit? Canada, US is natural, but beyond US is what? China, because in Canada, our 2 largest trading partners is China and US, right? So we thought, well, there's that. And then, for my background is I've already been doing business in China. So I've got a good, footprint there and a reputation. So why not hit those 2? And so to ensure that our company model makes sense, that's why I went back to China and Hong Kong and said, well, we've got to get investors there, because if they don't invest, that means our model is not quite correct. If they're willing to invest, that means that we are on the right track.
Yeah,
that's what it came down to in the beginning. And so I thought we could raise all the money here, but we need to validate that our business model makes sense overseas.
That's an interesting point. I was always curious about this side of things when it comes to getting investors internationally and so on. Mm-hmm. right now, I would say the Western world's in some level of financial trouble. We don't know. It's really abstract right now, right? Like we don't know
Mhm.
what's going to happen and so on and so forth. But obviously, we got the inflation starting to creep up. We now have the border lockdown protest. We don't know what's really going to come of that. But we do know that people are upset right now in general, right?
Yes.
People are
Yeah.
kind of irritated. We don't know what the markets are overall going to do. Does that translate into Eastern investment? Or like if things are going bad here, how are they usually turning out over there? Are they somewhat separated, like degrees of separation in terms of risk at that point?
I think at least the ones that we're talking with, they're looking long term. So
Mhm.
even during the Hong Kong riots, I called them. I'll say, "What's going on? Are you guys moving? Are you changing your portfolio? Your portfolio risk?"
Yeah.
No, this is just a period in time, and in the overall scheme of our strategy, it makes no difference. So, what's happening in North America? Same thing with COVID. Same thing. When I talk to them, that this is actually good. It's an opportunity, right?
Wow.
And then they give me ideas of, well, think about these areas to focus on right now, because people are aware of what's going on, and they're thinking about food. They're thinking about import and exports, and even at parts they say, well, focus more on domestic, like North America, because overseas movement of products may slow down for a while. So work your business in the North American market and grow that while we're waiting. So very long-term thinking, and that is tremendous, because so many companies, especially if you're a junior company like ourselves, is you get caught up with what's today's share price.
Yeah.
What we're going to do today, tomorrow, next couple months. But when you have investors that are in the background saying, look, that's going to happen, you're going to get the short-term investments coming in and out. But here's what the long-term strategy, and this is what we bought into. Do it in the next 5 years. We're extremely happy if you get that done. Right?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. The share price thing. Now, I've never ran a public company, but I've been invested in several. I've been in crypto. I've been in things where like the number can be a huge variable. It can go up 20% in an hour. It can go down 50% in an hour, right? And there is an emotional tie to that early on when you're doing
Mhm.
that. And I imagine that tie is a lot stronger when you are responsible for the growth of the company, right? Would you say that's
Yes.
accurate?
Oh, totally. Well, it's not just that. It's my parents' money in here, my friends' money, my relatives.
It's a good point.
Uh,
Yeah.
you got to remember that if TrustBIX fails, I probably have to move to Africa because I can't be in I
You
can't be
can't
in
show your face
Asia.
anywhere, man.
I can't show my face anywhere, so it's not going to fail. No, period. And so then, besides not failing, because you never want to play to not lose, you want to play to win, right? And so to play to win is that you got to think ahead and say, well, what's going to be really good for our shareholders? And at the end of the day, whoever we talk to, we always come back to, look, we've got to make sure the business is going to become profitable and grows, but we also have a fiduciary duty to ensure that our shareholders make money.
Yeah.
And we've got to constantly think about that. It doesn't matter if the shareholders came in when we IPO'd
Mhm.
or they came in later on. Our job is to make them profitable.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. So then again, like how do you cultivate that, I guess, detachment or inner peace from when his stock goes down 15%, or even so much so someone they describe it as you also shouldn't be super hyped if it goes up 50% either, because that's not necessarily healthy in the long-term trajectory either. So like how do you separate from that that you're not
Let me
like,
let me tell you a little story. And I apologize if I'm long-winded here. I used to take a lot of delegations to China, and many, of course, you go see the Great Wall. And the first time anyone sees the Great Wall, they're like, "Holy mackerel, this is amazing!" And they'll point somewhere up in the wall and says, "I want to be up there, take pictures, and just take it all in."
yeah.
Right? And then we start walking with these people, and they're young, they're old. Most of us are out of shape, so we're all kind of laughing at each other.
Yeah.
And I start seeing a pattern. Those who keep looking at that goal up there, and they keep looking at that, and they're walking, and imagine it's like plus 36, blue skies, it's hot as heck, right? You're sweating, and everybody keeps looking at that. They never make it. They never ever make it. But the ones who says I want to be there, and they just look down at that next step, and they take steps. When they get tired, they stop, take a drink of water, take some pictures, and then they go again. And they only focus on the next step. they always make it to the top.
Yeah.
So the lesson for me is that when we're looking at our company, whether share price up or down, when you win deals, you lose deals, whatever's happening, got to remember, we have set our goal. As long as we're taking the steps towards it every day, every week, every quarter, you're going to get there. And when you get there, everybody will celebrate. In the meantime, everything else that happens is just life, just business. Don't take it personal. Just focus on that. You have to do what it takes to get to the goal. But the best way to think about it is the next step.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So you're still, the big picture is still in scope, but you're going brushstroke to brushstroke, so to speak.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because otherwise it's just too far. Because you feel like you're not making progress, because you're not measuring progress in a finite unit that you can make it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's the hell. I mean, that applies to personal life too, when it comes to even any sort of problem in your life. Instead of being like, I need to lose 50 pounds this year, like that's kind of daunting. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to feel good about that tomorrow when you're not down a single pound. So
exactly.
So you're right. You do. It's best to break things down into digestible chunks. So to
right. Like if I can lose 4 pounds in a month, well, that sounds plausible, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And do that every month. That's 48 pounds. Yeah.
I think I had told somebody that unless you're on some sort of crazy performance enhancers, you're not going to gain more than 20 pounds of muscle a year while working out at best. And he tried to argue with me, saying like, "Oh no, you could gain an easy 5 to 10 pounds of muscle a year." I was like, "All right, I'll see you in a year when you're 120 pounds larger of muscle."
Yeah,
it doesn't work, man. It's small baby steps is how you tackle everything. But you have to again, like it's also setting the expectation, because a lot of change isn't going to happen in that short period of time, but it is still very important change.
And I'll give you an example when because we quite often talk about the Cargill sustainable beef supply chain, right? And in those early days, I remember sitting down with some of the folks at Cargill and saying, look, I know we've got big aspirations, but baby steps. Let's just start at kindergarten level. And we can always graduate it slowly. But if you don't start kindergarten level, the producers or the farmers are not going to adopt, because it's too difficult, too big. So let them start with baby steps, reward them for the baby steps. And as you get the adoption, then increase the requirements, increase the aggressiveness and all that. But you cannot do it in day one. If you do, no one's gonna buy in. It's too hard. Yeah. So same thing of our company. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, do you think from here that this current, I guess you would say, the abstract image of what a retail investor currently is right now, I think there's a layer of I don't know how you'd want to describe it, increased expectation of how fast things are going to go up, largely to, I would say, cryptocurrencies lately has been the biggest thing. And I don't know if you say they're spoiled, because a lot of those also went down, but I feel like they're changing. The demographic and what they tend to expect is somewhat changing. Would you say that's accurate based on like what you've heard 100%. Back from investors?
Yeah, 100%. The ones who wants those big leap and they're riding the roller coaster, right? Awesome week, terrible week.
Yeah.
Heck of the darn week, right? And then they're up and down, right? And our goal is to focus on building the fundamentals of a company, right? And then from there, the share price would take care of itself. And we think that you gotta get those big lifts, because you get those really good contracts in there, and part of it is our job to explain what we're doing to investors so that they understand, okay, this is what you're doing, this is what you're trying to build. And what we're looking for are the ones who wants to make money. We don't want them to look at, oh, I just want to make 10%. We want them to be greedy, right? We want them to be greedy. Let's be honest, right? Because as an investor myself, I want to be greedy when I'm investing. So we want them to be greedy, but we want them to look at us as also making a difference in the world. And so we're looking at the sticky retail investors, the ones who's going to hang in there with us for a little longer than a week or a day, right? And that they understand that we're really trying to make a change. And as we become successful, the earning potential for what we do is, at least in my personal mind, is unlimited, because there's so many ways to market food.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. Is why you say things like we want them to be greedy. It's it's better in a way for everybody. If a large portion of people are greedy, so to speak, it kind of greedy has a somewhat negative connotation to it. But you often see this in a lot of very, very large successful companies. Is a lot of the core executives still have a huge position. People are like, oh, it's not fair. It's like, would you have preferred them to have been selling the entire time on everybody while they were doing this? So,
well, exactly. Like, over time, I built and sold multiple tech businesses, right? And why do I do that? I like solving problems, but I also like making money,
yeah,
right? And when I look at TrustBIX, same thing. I want my shareholders to make money as well as myself. And I'm not going to apologize for that, because that money is something we all need to create a standard of living that we want, to achieve the goals we want, to have time and everything else. That's something you just must have, just like air. So let's not pretend, and let's not put a negative connotation to it, but let's embrace it and make sure that we make that happen for everyone.
and as you said, like the perfect investor is someone that agrees with your aligned message as well. Then that's how you were describing it, as a sticky investor. Then, right? So if they like your core message and what you're doing, it's not even just the money. It's, I think the money will cultivate best in this industry right here, and they plant it in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's so much fun. And I get to meet new investors all the time, because they'll email us or call in, and you'll notice, like, all of my emails, I have my cell number there, because I want to be accessible to everyone, right? And it may be a bit crazy to do that, but I really feel that we're all in it together, right? So if I haven't met you, I've had investors that called me out of Belgium. I didn't even know we had a Belgian contingent of investors. I was so excited to meet them, and so now we're regularly communicating via email just to stay in touch, and they also give me their what's happening over there in that part of the world. So it gives us market intelligence as well, right?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why, not to advocate what we're doing as we're doing it in kind of a meta way of describing it, but like, one of the interesting things about the video format is now, like, the bandwidth is just blown off the walls. Remember back in television days, you might get something, you might get 5 minutes on a TV show, and they're gonna holler it, and you have to, like, try to squeeze your entire message into this short period of time, and they're probably going to edit it, and it's going to look crazy. And now you can just kind of push it out into the ether, and people can go watch it. So Hugh, I guess, like, the main benefits I see to that is, as you had said, like, you can field these investors' questions, and then, well, I mean, if they have the questions, someone else is going to have that question eventually too. And they can provide a very useful part of this feedback loop, where they give the information that they want to know, and then we share it with everybody. So they help the company grow by answering questions and then feeding that information to everybody else.
Totally. Actually, while you're talking, I'm just wondering, geez, wouldn't it be fun to get some of our investors onto one of our videos? And why did you invest?
Yeah.
What do you like about this company, and what's your personal strategy? This is not something we're trying to tell them what to say, and we want them to give us the honest answer, because partly it's for our learning too. How do we get the messaging out, and what's the reality? Because in the beginning, you're asking about Hong Kong investors, what they like. Well, maybe it'd be fun for us to invite some of these investors and say, why don't you share with us what your thoughts are? Let's hear it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, that's a good bet. Yeah. That's the best way to do it. That's data gathering, right? That's how all these
absolutely
all these ads work. That's why we all get blasted with very personalized ads. Is they have decided based on what you like and based on previous people and what they like, you would fit for them. So yeah, that's a really good point. So you'd be able to build a pretty good data set there. So
yeah,
that does make sense. So if you guys want to do that, by all means, let us know, and we'll happily have you on. All you have to download is Zoom. It's nice and easy, and just let us know in the comments below, or reach out to Hugh here about, say, like you said, he's available. So give him a chat, and we'll get something recorded. I don't know about live, Hugh. That might be a little bit risky. You never know what people are going to say on a live recording. That's
yeah. Well, even we recorded it, I mean, like, of course, we want to respect everyone. So we got to watch out what people say sometimes. But what I really want is minimal editing. Yeah. Because we really want to hear what investors are thinking about our company and why they invest into it, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I like these conversations, like how we're doing this right now, because it's more genuine than like a hyper scripted related thing. And again, like, this is one of the things that like, again, aiming towards the average retail investor watching videos like this, people connect to people. At the end of the
Yes.
day, that's what business is people connecting to people about things, right?
Mhm.
And you have to be able to trust people that you're talking to, and to trust people, you have to somewhat understand them. You have to know who
Yes.
they are, and so far and so forth. And say we're more than just suits that we're wearing right now. We're not just people just who wear suits and make decisions and so on and so forth. You
I
have
can take it off if
yeah.
that's what they want, right? Yeah.
Let's say it's YouTube. I don't know if they might demonetize us if we start taking stuff.
Oh darn. Okay.
No, but yeah, essentially, so you want to actually show yourself. You have to obviously trust that yourself is someone worth showing, which is another part of it. But you've already did that. You're already an executive in a company. You're putting yourself out there to that degree. Stepping out here in front of a camera should be no different, honestly.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you're always showing your true self, it doesn't matter what the medium is, because your message should be the same every time, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.